boy and listen to Mr. James, okay?
Okay, I just got that for
I
Harry.
will not, I won't drink it. All right. Sit with me. I love you.
Good morning. I gotta say, I appreciate the school bell. I remember having one when I was a kid. Welcome, everyone, to the University Unitarian Universalist Fellowship. My name is Beatriz Reyes Foster. My pronouns are she, her, and ella, and I will be your service leader today. Greetings to everyone on Facebook and YouTube, and a special welcome to any visitors, whether virtual or in person. Please take a moment to silence your devices. We would like to remind everyone that COVID is still very much around. I actually got it for the first time a few weeks ago, and it was a fairly miserable experience. So please, if you are feeling under the weather, as much as we love having people in person, please don't come. Please join us online. And also, for those of you who are here, take a moment to identify your nearest exits. We have 3 exits out of the sanctuary available. One in the way back. I feel like a flight attendant, and and one on each side of the sanctuary.
We're much nicer than LA.
All right. Now it's time for committee moments. If you have some committee business to share with the congregation, please come to the microphone.
Good morning, Margie with membership. So after services today, it's a coffee, cake, and chat time for any newcomers, visitors that might want to know a little bit more about the congregation and about UU 101. We sit back there for about an hour and learn about each other. And do I have anybody who might be interested in coming?
There's a marvelous looking cake.
You're okay. There's going to be plenty of cake. I made a Schwarzwälder Kirschkuchen. Yes. Yeah. It's the Thank you. Yes. So, yes. No, it's not vegan. I used a lot of cream in it. Sorry.
I'll enjoy it for you.
I'm looking for greeters. So if anybody is,
Real fun job.
it is. You get to really know a lot of people more than you already know them, and it is a good time. It is fun. Greeters usually show up at about 9:45, and if you want, you can greet with a friend. That's even more fun. So if you're willing enough to doing that for us, let me know. And also in the back corner, we had a bumper crop of muscadine grapes, and so I brought some with a bunch of extra baggies if you want to take some home.
Hi, Lori Hospitality. I want to thank all the people who let me have a 2-month vacation from coffees. But I am back, and so I'm going to be starting to twist arms to have the joy of helping us just serve coffee and meet your fellow members. Also remember, we have 2 potlucks coming up. The first one, August 25th and September 8th. So we're hoping to see you all at both of those. Sorry? Do we have a theme or I don't know. It's the farewell for Reverend Tracy.
Maybe we should ask her her favorite food.
We could do that.
Yeah, we could ask her for her favorite food. That's a good idea.
I know she loves deviled eggs, because the first time I met her, she was looking for deviled eggs.
So I'm Ann, representing the board and a couple other hats, but just a reminder that next week is our quarterly meeting. You should have gotten an email if you're a member with our meeting minutes from May, and we will have light refreshments, and then I have our first ever in the history of this congregation safety training, brought to you by our safety team, which is Derek, Robert, Carl, Michael, myself, and Jill. So please plan to stick around for that. We will try to get it all done within an hour-ish, but we will have childcare, we'll have food for the kids, so that's it. And then I just wanted, it's sort of a joy or a shout out, but shout out to those of us who have been working on the refresh of the conference room in the library. You will notice is much tidier, thanks to Derek, Carl, John Martinez also helped us with painting, and so just shout out to them. Please be careful not to mess it up right away. If you need help on the AV equipment, Derek is the expert, but he has written fantastic instructions. And we have a couple more pieces of furniture, so if anybody else wants to help put together a couple of IKEA bookshelves this week, see me.
Hello, I'm Chloe McElroy. On August 18th, which is 2 weeks from now, we are doing a pet blessing. So please, either bring, if you have like a well-behaved animal, or just one that you can keep in a crate, like cats, dogs, small animals, birds, all are welcome. We're gonna do a whole animal blessing ceremony. So please bring your animals, and if you don't want to bring your animal, but you want to have them in a slideshow, please just get in contact with me and I will put a slideshow together. Yes, Caitlin?
When is it, sorry?
It's August 18th, 2 weeks from now, pet blessing. Yes, instructions for pictures will be in the notable news. Also, you can just send pictures to me as well, whatever floats your boat. All right. August 18th.
I have a question.
Oh, yes, Gina.
Can we hang out in the wiggle room?
If you don't like animals?
No, if you bring an animal.
I think that's
Hang out where? In the wiggle room?
I think it would depend on if the wiggle room is in use.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Okay. Joey Cole, Ann has asked me, now that we've redone the library, and it does look fantastic, by the way, to redo the books. Marilyn, do you remember when we did that years ago, you and I? So I'm willing to try that again, but I am definitely going to need help. So if anybody has any really good ideas about how to organize, if you are, have been a librarian in a former life, I would appreciate any help you can provide. So please see me after service if you're interested in helping with that. Thank you.
Laura Owens and Miguel, tag teaming for the Social Action Committee. I think you all know that our focus is getting out the vote. That's been our initiative. So I just want to let you all know that Mary Ann put together the most amazing election resource guide. Everything you could possibly want to know about if you're registered, mail-in, researching candidates, fact-checking. Of course, it's nonpartisan. We don't suggest candidates or parties or anything like that, but it's really thorough. So it's over to the side. If you would all please grab one, I appreciate that. And then Evelyn recommended for our next social action, share the plate, is SALT, which is Service and Love Together. It's like an amazing mobile service unit that helps people who are unhoused have a place to go for showers and laundry, and they have several locations around Central Florida. One of them is at the Christian Resource Center, and I think they also, and Martha can correct me on this, I think they also connect people with a caseworker if somebody just shows up and wants to use the services of laundry and showers. They can also talk to somebody at the center about Christian Service Center and get other job information, housing, whatever it is. So it's really great. Oh, and they lost their funding during COVID, right? Okay, so please support that generously.
Thank you, Laura. And remember, folks, democracy means rule of the people. So early voting begins tomorrow, August 5th, through the 18th for the primary election. Yes, we have an election in August in Florida. So that's why we have the information set out for you to help you with those decisions. Primary election day, August 20th, Tuesday, August 20th. And we're also going to have another postcard registration drive, fill out postcards to send out to, I think this time it's going to be Orange County voters. Last time we did Seminole County. This time will be Orange County voters. Again, nonpartisan. So we're just going to remind people who probably haven't voted recently in the past 2 years to, get out there and get out to vote. Thank you very much.
Hi, David McElroy. Not this Monday, but next Monday is a men's support group. If you have not been and you're a man and you want information, you can see me afterwards. We basically just have a check-in and food, and it's good times for all. So if you want any information about it, see me afterwards.
Hello everyone, James from Religious Education. I wanted to let you guys all know, so a few weeks ago we had our main mural painting event for RE. It looks really, really good, but part of the mural is handprints from people, and since obviously not everyone was there for that day, we're going to have another day to go ahead and let kids who weren't there on that day add their handprints to the mural, and it's going to be next week after the backpack blessings. So if you're staying here for the meeting, as soon as the kids go out for childcare, that's when we're going to have the handprints. If you're not staying here for the meeting, still go ahead. If you want your kids to have a chance to put their handprints on, they can go back and then they can go with you right after we finish that. So thank you.
Hi. About today's service, our speaker, Harry Covertson, will be using all his time to present this morning. So after service, we're going to take a 5-minute personal hygiene break and then regroup up here for people that have questions. It's a heady topic, so the Social Action Committee is sponsoring a little discussion group here. And so keep your questions in mind and don't leave. Oops.
Thank you, Martha. My opening words come from the Hebrew and Christian scriptures. The alien who resides with you shall be to you as the citizen among you. You shall love the alien as yourself, for you were aliens in the land of Egypt. I am the Lord your God. Leviticus 19:34. Let mutual love continue. Do not neglect to show hospitality to strangers, for by doing that, some have entertained angels without knowing it. Remember those who are in prison, as though you were in prison with them, those who are being tortured, as though you yourselves were being tortured. Hebrews 13, verse 1 through 3. And finally, a statement from the UUA immigration site. Just as love knows no borders, our dedication to justice reaches across boundaries and walls. We show up on the side of love with all families, regardless of citizenship status, and strive to create welcoming communities and congregations. We organize and advocate for immigration reform, for an end to detentions and deportations, and for a world where hands are extended in peace and care across borders, and no one feels forced to leave home or risk death in pursuit of a decent life for their family. We affirm immigration as a moral issue and have long spoken out in support of immigrant justice. Our opening music is hymn number 110, Come Children of Tomorrow. It will be led by Michael Richards with Janet Levins on piano. Do you need the microphone?
If you're able, please stand and join me as we sing is number 110 in the hymn books. children of the morrow come. New glory dawns upon the world. The warring banners must be furled. The earth become a common home. From plain and field and town the sound, the stirring rumors of the day. Old wrongs and burdens must make way for all to tread the common ground. Divided we have long withstood the love that is our common speech. The comrade cry of each to each is calling us to humanhood. Thank you. Please be seated.
Thank you, Michael. Today's chalice lighter is Anastasia. She uses she, her pronouns. She is 11 years old. And her joy is that she got to do a treetop obstacle course at summer camp. Please join me as we recite these words in unison. In the light of truth and the warmth of love, we gather to seek, to sustain, and to share. And together we make our affirmation. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its gift. These are a great covenant to dwell together in peace, to seek truth in love, and to help one another. At this time, let us take a moment to welcome any guests in our own congregation today. Our services, topics, and speakers vary greatly from one service to another, so we invite you back to experience the full breadth of services. We have had a part-time minister, the Reverend Tracy Barrett, who has been with us for the last few years. She is getting ready to transition out of the congregation, but she's still around, I believe, for a few more weeks. So please come back and spend some time with us. And then once we go back to a lay-led, we will have lots of different speakers, lots of different services. We always like to say, come at least 3 times to really get a flavor of the kind of services that we have here, which range from very academic to spiritual and social action-oriented to everything in between. So please take a moment to say hello to your neighbor. Okay. Yeah, I know. It's amazing. They didn't have to ring the bell. Wonderful. Now is time for joys or concerns. Please take a moment. If you would like to share a joy or a concern that is impacting you today, you may come to the microphone and share.
Okay. So, how's it doing? Okay, so hi. Hi. So can everybody hear me? Yes. And if you do, then what do you think that's true. A bunch of stuff that's true.
I think it's more of a you sharing something that you're happy about or sad about rather than a conversation right now.
I'm trying. Yeah,
Why don't you tell them about your tooth?
Wait, yeah. I lost it. I lost it. And it was not ready to come out. It was not ready to come out. And I fractured a bone.
Oh, that wasn't fun.
And now I know what's under here.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay.
I lost a tooth too.
My joy is that last week I turned 15, which means I'm finally able to get my driver's permit. So hopefully soon I'll be able to begin driving and stuff, which will be fun.
Hi, Caitlin McElroy. I've got a joy and a concern. I've got the joy that I got to spend a beautiful week in the mountains of Virginia at Susie and just had a great time with Paula and other people here. And it was delightful, and I suggest everyone go if they can next year. My concern, some of you might have seen it on Facebook. I'm not going to cry in front of y'all. I quit my job after a day and a half at Orange County. My anxiety got the best of me. I realize now that I need to seek a job that is easier for me, that won't instigate. It was a lot of responsibility, and it was benefiting the community. And I feel like I let the community down as well as myself and y'all too, because y'all believed in me. So sorry to be so heavy, but thanks, Martha. Thank you, guys. Love you. I love you all. I love all of your support. And I just wanted to let y'all know because mental health is a thing that can be really taxing and affect your life. And I really appreciate y'all's support. So that's my concern. But Susie was beautiful, and I should have started with the concern and then ended with Susie, but oh well. Paula!
Susie was amazingly excellent, and I traveled with the Vitas, which meant that I had a kind of extended vacation fun, because traveling with the Vitas turned out to be more fun than you could imagine.
I can imagine.
My joy is today I spent Susie.
Hello, I'm Allie. I moved with my family from Southwest Florida a few months ago, so the concern of, Florida and the nature taking its path, whatever happens, I just want to send love back to Southwest Florida.
Hello, my name is Chloe McElroy. I have two joys. One is we're surprising our friend Kylie with a 30th birthday trip to the beach house, and we're very excited about it. We've been planning it for a while, so very excited. And I'm not going to be here next week because I will be spending my anniversary weekend with that beautiful girl over there. We have now made it to a year officially, and I love her very much. So I just wanted to share that with you guys.
She took my joy.
Love you. There we go.
So I don't know if you guys saw, but I got myself fired. Yeah, I did. It actually was really devastating. I've been working 40 years, never been fired. But it was over a social media post, so be careful out there, because I made it as a glib comment on something, and I got outed, and before I knew it, Advent Health was like, you're being trespassed. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, it was ridiculous. But it actually was okay, because it wasn't a good fit for this New York UU pagan Jew. It really wasn't. So it really wasn't. There was a lot of Jesus for me. So it's okay. I have some interviews lined up, and I got an extended vacation out of it, so it's okay.
Joey Cole here. I'm a little late in thanking everybody for coming to my 80th birthday 2 weeks ago. Last weekend, the reason I wasn't here is that my air conditioning had gone out, and I had to be there for when the guy finally came. It went out on Thursday. He finally got there on Sunday to fix it. So, yes, and I want to officially thank Lorraine for letting us use her house to sleep in a couple of nights so that we could at least get a decent night's sleep without air conditioning, with air conditioning. So we appreciate that. But again, thanks all of you for coming, and it was wonderful, and I so appreciate everybody's support. And now, Miss Luna.
Hi everybody, my name is Luna. And my joy is that Miss Joey is with me today. And I'm having very much fun with her.
Hi, Chloe Hatfield. I have a kind of a joy and a concern. Concern is that we had to rescind our offer on the one house that we thought we were going to be going for. There was just a lot of work that had to be done that we didn't know beforehand, but we got the inspection. So it's a little sad that we had to spend a good amount of money to get that inspection and appraisal, but it's a lesson that we learn. Yesterday, though, I did go to a property where everything seemed to be perfect. Now we know. And the realtor was able to do some stuff to give us more of an update. Unlike the other property, they already had the appraisal done, and so that was very nice. It's in a really nice, quiet neighborhood with tree-lined streets, and it was really pretty. So I'm just kind of crossing my fingers that, knocking on wood, that this might be it. And then I have another property that I'm going to be seeing today, just to make our final decision. So hopefully it gets done soon, because I have like the end of September to make a decision or to get out of where I'm living now. But yeah.
That's good. I'm sharing a joy from online from James Coquenard, who's Martha's friend who's from Haiti. He's back in Haiti now. And he just says it's a joy to be participating online, even though he can't be here in person. So he wanted to share that. And since I'm already up here, I wanted to share, we had a lovely time at Susie, and we were able to extend the road trip to see several friends from the time when we lived in Zambia that we hadn't seen in a really, really long time. Also saw my niece, who's doing really, really well, and got to see Amelia, this is her last week as an intern in DC. She's absolutely loved it. She does not want to come back to Florida. And she got to hang out with Pete Buttigieg last week at the National Cathedral. So that's been one of the highlights so far.
That's so cool. I want to be Amelia.
I know, I want to.
Let us take a brief moment of silence to honor the joys and concerns that remain unspoken. And now is time for all ages. James, do you have a, no? Oh, Joey will be leading.
Should stay up here. Okay. It's me again. I have a slide, okay. Years ago, I had to teach, I was teaching in a community college in Maryland, and it was in Columbia, if any of you know Maryland. That's very close to DC, kind of like a bedroom community for DC. And we had a lot of international students. Anybody know what an international student is? Yeah. Right, somebody who is not from this country necessarily. Okay, so because of that, they wanted the instructors to get a feel for what it would, dealing with international students. Some of these people already had degrees, but not in our language, so to speak, and not in our country. So they were going back to school. And one of the first things they did is they put, this isn't the one, I had to throw this together and I'm not very good at this. But anyway, they gave us this sentence, or actually a whole paragraph, and they kept throwing in these words that we obviously did not understand. The whole class is planning a trip to the, I will buy some, to bring with on the outing. It is important to have lots of something also. Okay, and the reason that they gave us this particular thing, by the way, those words are Greek. The reason that they gave it to us is so that we would understand how the international students often felt as they were reading the things. So we made some adjustments, obviously. Hopefully we became a little more patient. Hopefully we became a little more understanding and looking for things other than how they performed, especially language-wise. Okay. So, that said, I'm asking the kids in the audience, this is time for all ages, but I'm directing this particular thing to the children in the audience. Do you think you might come across any other students in your school that will have this kind of a problem? Ender? I have, actually. Okay. Can you just elaborate a little bit?
There was a student in one of my classes who only spoke Spanish, and so not a lot of people were making fun of them. I didn't really associate with them much because I didn't sit near them, but there were also a whole bunch of kids who also tried to make sure they felt welcome, which was always nice.
Very nice. Okay, that's what I was kind of looking for. What can we do to help these particular people? Joe?
I am gonna go to a new school, and for some of the day I'm gonna have a I'm gonna have a Spanish teacher, and I'm gonna learn Spanish.
Wonderful, Joe. Maybe you can help those people that are having trouble learning English. But it's not just Spanish. People have all kinds of issues at school, and sometimes they get made fun of. I would like you to think about what you can do to help them. It's not just the teachers that should be understanding. We should understand our fellow students. And I hope that all of you will think about that. I was hoping that this would go a lot longer, but I know that we have a lot of things to do today. All right, one more, Chloe, we'll go with you. And then I have to stop.
Sorry. I just want to say that I like to learn languages, and right now I'm learning German. But I know that I'm better reading it than speaking it, and so it takes me a while to, in my head, form a simple sentence. And I think, oh, well, anybody trying to teach or talk to me in English where that's not their first language, I understand that it's hard, and so you need to give them patience to form that sentence in their head before saying it.
And if you see any bullying going on, I hope you'll be brave and let the bully know that you don't approve of that. Yes. Thank you.
We are a generous congregation. Each month, we dedicate 40% of our plate offerings to a worthy organization. This month, we share our plate with SALT, which, as you heard, provides showers, laundry, and other services to people who are unhoused and people who have low incomes through the Christian Service Center. Our interlude music is hymn 134, Our World is One, and we will be led by Ann Packham.
Please sing along with me as you're willing and able.
Our world is one world, where church is one, affects us all. The seas that wash us round about, the clouds that cover
us the rains that fall. Our world is one world, the thoughts we think affect us all. The way we build our attitudes with love and hate we make a bridge or wall. Our world is one world, its ways of wealth affect us all. The way we spend, the way we share, who are the rich or poor, who stand or fall. Our world is one world, just like a ship that bears us all, where fear and greed make many rows, but where ours can hear a different call.
Thank you to Ann and Janet for that lovely song. And now we will sing our children out. Love you and bless you and send you on your way. We love you and bless you today and every day. Harry Covertson is a 6th-generation Floridian and 4th-generation educator. He is a recovering lawyer, a retired academic, and currently serves as priest at St. Richard's Episcopal Parish in Winter Park. He earned a law degree from the University of Florida, a Master's of Divinity from the Episcopal Seminary in Berkeley, California, and a PhD in Religion, Law, and Society from Florida State University. He represented juvenile offenders and mentally ill clients facing the Baker Act in Orlando for 4 years and taught for 13 years as a lecturer in the philosophy department at UCF before retiring in 2016. Harry has led an unorthodox life that includes a number of extended trips to Mexico and nearly all of Central America, including 2-week stints as an international ceasefire observer, and later as an international election monitor in El Salvador with the World Council of Churches. From that life journey, he offers some insights gained along the way today. Please join me in welcoming Harry to the podium.
Thank you so much. It's nice to be back. It's been a while, and I'm glad to see all of you. So, there we go. I'm going to be talking this morning about immigration, and I'm going to be building in part on my own experience and also on the study that I've done over my lifetime. So you'll hear the lawyer, you'll hear the priest, and you'll hear the academic. So I want to thank you for your willingness to wrestle with one of the most vexing problems to face humanity in the 21st century, immigration. This is a complex issue, and it has a lot of pieces. Please be aware that I do not have the answers for the concerns that I will be raising here. Instead, my goal this morning is to offer us some ways to think about these questions that we find so difficult. And for just to tell you about the picture there, that's the village I lived in Panama for the summer called Las Guabitas. Now, perhaps this seems like a strange question, but any discussion of immigration presumes something called a border. But what is a border? How do borders come into being? How are they maintained? And how do they change or end? The first thing we need to know is that a border is a social construct. A social construct is a concept that exists not in objective reality. It exists only as a result of human understandings and interactions. Borders exist only to the degree that human beings recognize the artificial lines that we have imposed upon the Earth's surface and agree upon how those lines should be honored. To illustrate this, if one were in the International Space Station, orbiting around the North American continent, they would pass over two areas that most people today understand to delimit the United States. On a clear day, this is what you would see as the station crossed the continent that we have named North America, where the body of water that we call the Gulf of Mexico bends to the south. And if you look closely at the region below, you'll notice that the deserts that we call the Sonora and the Chihuahua deserts stretch contiguously across the region without interruption. Now look again. Consider the same map with the artificial lines that we call our borders superimposed upon them. South of a line that resulted from what is known as the Gadsden Purchase, this region is called Mexico. North of it, the United States. To the east, a river divides a formerly Mexican state called Texas from Mexican states of Coahuila and Tamaulipas, as delineated by the 1848 Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo. Now, it's important to note here that when we discuss the social constructs of borders, they only endure as long as people are willing to continue recognizing them. And a good example is seen in American history. When we look at the pre-Columbian map of the area that will come to be called the United States, you will notice that the territories claimed by 562 identifiable indigenous peoples had their borders of their own. Those include at least 4 major tribal peoples within what is today called Florida. The arrival of the first immigrants into North America would prove catastrophic for the indigenous population that they encountered. Jared Diamond, the author of Guns, Germs, and Steel, estimates that of the 20 million residents in the Americas when the Europeans first arrived, 95% of them would be dead within a century from the ravages of conquest, enslavement, and diseases. Thus, this map illustrates 2 important aspects of the social constructs that are borders. 1, they are only as real as we think they are, and 2, they can change. This map illustrates the movement of European colonists from east to west across the North American continent over a 300-year period. You will note that the borders these colonists encountered were rarely honored, beginning with the tribal boundaries of the indigenous. In the process, borders honored for a time would later be abrogated by colonists moving west and south. So the winners would be a new country called the United States. But the losers would be the indigenous people forced westward on the Trail of Tears, Spain, which would lose Florida to American slaveholders flooding southward, France, which would prove unable to restrain American settlers moving westward, selling their interest in the Louisiana Purchase, and Mexico, which initially invited American slaveholders to their state of Texas, only to eventually have the Americans revolt and drive the Mexicans south of the Rio Grande, which became the new border. So borders have never been a barrier to American interest when its residents began to think that the grass was greener on the other side of those borders. And thus it is important to note here the way these aggressive and acquisitive behaviors have been legitimated historically. Key to the European conquest of the Americas was a decree in 1493 by Pope Alexander VI called Inter Caetera. From that came the doctrine of discovery, which stated that any land not inhabited by Christians was available to be discovered, claimed, exploited by Christian rulers, and its non-Christian peoples could be disposed of as the conquerors decided. In short, God had given this land to the conquerors and blessed their enterprise. Now, this vision essentially saw the Americas as empty land available for European colonists. A second means of legitimating the abrogation of existing borders in North America was the doctrine of manifest destiny. This understanding asserted that God had given the North American continent to the American settlers to push westward and southward to occupy it. This became the means of legitimating the violation of the border with Mexico and the decimation of indigenous peoples forced onto lands that the settlers did not want, called reservations. The history of the United States is one of consistent refusal to honor borders, beginning with its colonization by European settlers. This is a contextual aspect any thoughtful consideration of immigration must include. But borders are not the only thing that we socially construct. When human beings crossed socially constructed borders, we call them a number of names. Note that these are the same people they were prior to crossing the border, the only difference being the way they are seen by others, and many come to see themselves as well. It is our tendency in all discourse on immigration to reduce people to a quality or even a commodity, losing sight of their humanity entirely. So let's consider the following descriptions that we use to talk about people who have come across our current socially constructed borders. Immigrant. This understanding focuses on the fact that the person in question has crossed an international border. Why they came, what they might bring to their new land, how they will be received, are all secondary considerations here. Refugees. This understanding focuses on the reasons that the persons have come, but the conditions that prompted their departures from their homeland are hardly universal. Some groups, like Cubans and Southeast Asians, have been welcomed with open arms in response to failures in American foreign policy. Others, like Haitians and Guatemalans, who likewise have suffered from America's foreign policies in their homelands, have not been deemed refugees. Migrants. This understanding turns largely on labor considerations and can include those moving across international borders or within countries once there. Here, human beings are summed up by their productivity and utility to others. Aliens. This is a vision that emphasizes difference from those who use it. As in any dualistic comparison, there is an inherent tendency to see the two elements being compared in hierarchical terms, better or worse, good, evil, human, other than human. This particular dichotomy is complicated by the influence of our science fiction industry, which refers to extraterrestrial beings as aliens. Illegals. This understanding turns on legal terms, often used by those who have very little idea of what our law actually provides. Immigration law is essentially civil in nature, not criminal. Illegal suggests the latter, even as most of those who would be seen in this manner actually enter the country legally and simply overstay their visas. In recent years, the overstayers have outnumbered those crossing borders without visas by about 2 to 1. From an ethical perspective, we must recognize that those in violation of an immigration statute are simply not in the same moral universe as bank robbers or even tax frauds. Undocumented. This term, while intended to be less pejorative than others, still reduces the human being in question to a set of documents. Documentation is often fluid. Undocumented often refers to a status on a given point on a timeline. In every one of these references, the humanity of the person described is at best a secondary consideration if considered at all. And this is where the danger arises, in my view. History is replete with accounts of atrocities that have occurred when human beings were reduced to things which could then be disposed of as others saw fit. And they have familiar names like Wounded Knee on the bottom left, and Auschwitz on the bottom right, and Rwanda up at the top on the right. So who are the human beings that we're talking about?
Moms and
Yep. And kids is a key piece of that. Until the COVID pandemic 3 years ago, Homeland Security found that the largest group of immigrants crossing our borders between designated points of entry were from Mexico, followed closely by those from Central America's Northern Triangle, El Salvador, Guatemala, and Honduras, and those are the countries that are purple there at the bottom of the map. What Homeland Security had not anticipated was a shift in places of origin of immigrants after the pandemic. Today, Mexico and Central America continue to produce about half of those immigrants. But they have been joined by immigrants from Colombia, Turkey, India, China, Africa, and up to 60,000 Russian immigrants who crossed the Mexican border last year. Now, all immigrants come for their own reasons, making a one-size-fits-all approach to immigration difficult, if not impossible. This brings me to my first personal narrative regarding immigration. Now, I've crossed the Mexican border countless times since my first visit to the Yucatan in 1986. I know the drill. Having my passport and my very best deferential Spanish ready for the crossing. But what occurred 3 years ago in New Mexico was unexpected. I had been down to Mesilla, a colonial town outside Las Cruces, to attend a Day of the Dead celebration. It was colorful, musical, everything I'd hoped for. And as my friend and I began the long drive back up I-25 to Albuquerque, we were routed off the highway about an hour north of Las Cruces for an ICE, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, check. As we got close to the agents, they saw two white people in a Prius and began waving us through, shouting, "Don't stop, don't stop." Behind us, a truck with several Latino farm workers would not be so lucky. As we sped off, the agents had them out of their vehicle and had begun shaking them down. Now, I call this our gringo check. These agents had no idea of who we were, where we had come from, or why we were there. They judged us solely on our complexions. Now, that worked to our advantage, but it also revealed both the porous nature of our borders, as well as the racist understandings that inform both border enforcement and the way we see immigrants in this country. Now, we have often romanticized Western European immigrants to America. We construct them as courageous adventurers, those answering a calling, taking their hero's journey. Moreover, many of us have bought into the American dream that suggests that people always come to America seeking a better life, often cast solely in terms of income. Other more heroic narratives speak of the desire for freedom, escaping from tyrannical regimes. All of these visions inform our American narrative. But in fact, much of immigration historically has been driven by existential reasons. Starvation when potato crops fail. Religious persecution that plays out in inquisitions, religious wars, and holocausts. Regime changes in which the losers become targets for liquidation. All these factors have played a role in American immigration historically, but today there are three new factors to add to that scenario. And the first is anthropogenic climate change. With the rise of temperatures worldwide, a number of changes are driving people to leave their homes in the name of survival. Rising sea levels have driven people from their island homes in places ranging from the San Blas island chain off the coast of Panama to and that's the woman at the top. These are the people that make the molas that many of us like. To the Aleutian chain off the coast of Alaska. The United Nations Secretary General has called the risk to upwards of 900 million people worldwide a threat of biblical proportions. Deadly heat waves are making places from China to sub-Saharan Africa to Central America incapable of continued production of staples like wheat and maize. Where people find themselves incapable of self-sustenance, often their only alternative to dying is to move. The second is the result of an arming of the world that has come from virtually unregulated armament industries, many of them here in the United States, and that is particularly true in Latin America. The initial flow of arms into Central America came in the early 1980s when the Reagan administration began to send weapons to regimes friendly to American corporate interests, fearing the rise of popular governments, sympathetic to farmers, cooperatives, and trade unions. This flood of weaponry came at a time when the U.S. School of the Americas, which you see in the bottom right there, in Panama, was teaching military elites and paramilitary ground soldiers how to engage in terrorist activities designed to pacify elements in Central American society which would challenge regimes that were friendly to U.S. interests. Those declared enemies, often summed up under the rubric of Marxist, included agricultural cooperatives, trade unions, the press, and ultimately the populist wing of Roman Catholicism, from which liberation theology had arisen. The martyrdom of figures like Oscar Romero, and there he's in the bottom right, left corner there, the Archbishop of El Salvador, the Maryknoll sisters, the Jesuit professors at the University of Central America and their housekeepers, as well as the priests in the region of Atitlan in Guatemala, occurred at the hands of American-trained, American-funded, and American-armed paramilitaries. By the end of the 1980s, the Reagan administration had been reined in by Congress, the president barely avoiding impeachment for his role in ongoing acts expressly forbidden by Congress. And in a number of Central American nations, majorities once oppressed by the U.S.-supported regimes began to rise to power. As the CIA and military advisors left Central America, their arsenals remained. Today, these have become one of the means of gang warfare, and a number of these weapons, however antiquated by today's standard, have flowed out of Central America into Mexico. But that's just the beginning of the flow of these deadly weapons in this volatile region, whose elites have been trained in terrorist techniques to keep the population subjugated. Today, an iron river of U.S.-produced weaponry continues to flow into Latin America, ending in the hands of drug cartels and abusive security forces. More than half of the weapons used in crimes that have been recovered and traced in Central America or sourced from the United States, and that is according to the U.S. Gun Control Agency from the Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms. This level nears 70% for Mexico and is around 80% across the Caribbean. While private purchases of firearms in Mexico are limited, many come across the southern border from the weapon-saturated Central American Triangle and from the north by smugglers who bought them legally within the United States. Gun-related homicides in Mexico, which does not have a major production domestically of firearms, increased 7 times between 2006, when the Mexican government went to war with the drug cartels, and 2019. And the profits of half of all American gun dealers are dependent upon Mexican purchasers. This iron river of weaponry is a deadly aspect of the third factor of the immigration picture, the rise of the drug cartels. To understand this connection, it is important to know that U.S. trade agreements have played a major role in the rise of drug cartels. The North American Free Trade Agreement, NAFTA, was signed in 1993 by representatives of Mexico, the U.S., and Canada. While widely acclaimed for removing trade barriers allowed for products to pass between the 3 countries without tariffs, the agreement had a perhaps unforeseen impact on small farmers in Mexico. One aspect of NAFTA was its insistence that U.S. agricultural products be sold in Mexico without any tariffs to protect local agricultural products. Another aspect of that agreement required Mexico to accept these products which were grown with U.S. federal subsidies. So as a result, American corn and beans, which are staples in the Mexican diet, now were cheaper than those grown by local farmers. NAFTA would boost Mexico's manufacturing industries, but it gutted many farming towns. Mexico lost over 900,000 farming jobs in the first decade of NAFTA. Many farmers faced with starvation turned to crops which could find a new market. Coca. and marijuana. Long the world's largest producer of marijuana, Mexico recently became a leading player in the international heroin market. America has always been the largest consumer of those illicit drugs. And today, Mexican producers now dominate the fentanyl market here in the United States. Smuggled in by white people. Yes, yes. Who don't get stopped at the border, by the way. Smuggled in by white people. Yes. With the decline in self-sustaining agriculture, two results became observable in Mexico and Central America. First, the rise of drug production to replace the growing of foodstuffs native to Latin America skyrocketed. Second, the rise of drug cartels and armed gangs began to dominate large areas of Mexico and Central America. All these factors have worked hand in hand to create a dangerous frontera region in northern Mexico along the U.S. border, where human trafficking into the United States has now become a major business as well. This brings me to my second narrative of my time in Latin America. I was in El Salvador in 1992. There we go. I was in El Salvador in 1992 with a group of seminarians in the period just after the assassination of Archbishop Romero and the Maryknoll sisters and the Jesuit priests. Coming in from the airport, we had seen the posters around San Salvador that read, "Be a patriot, kill a priest." We were there with the World Council of Churches to observe the ceasefire between the rebel FMLN, the National Liberation Front of Fabundo Martí, and the Salvadoreño regime that our government was supporting. On the third day there, we went out into the UN-monitored countryside in an area near the Honduran border called the Zona Conflictiva, the conflicted zone. We had spent some time in the small pueblo of Aguacate in the ruins of a parish church where people who had come there for refuge were only to be killed when the Salvadorian army bombed it. We were surrounded by blackened hillsides, stripped of all living beings by U.S.-produced napalm dropped from helicopters like that one that they shot down and put in the middle of their village there. The campesinos we met in the village were living in cattle barns, left behind by one of the 14 families, the elite of Salvadorian society that U.S. corporate and military efforts had sought to protect. We heard their deepest aspirations to be able to grow and market their own produce, to ensure that their children had an education, and to have basic medical care available to them. That was what had animated their willingness to rise up and overtake the elite farm where they now lived. And the leader of the base community, that's him up in the top right-hand corner there, the leader of the base community said to us, "You may think that we're animals because we live in cow sheds." When we asked this man, who was in his middle 30s, where he had lived before, he pointed nearby. "Under the bridge," he said. At that point, some of the village's children came up, their bellies distended by malnutrition. And the leader noticed our attention to them and said, "2 of our children in our community died last week of malnutrition. One of them was my son. He was 10. That night, I would be back in the San Francisco Bay Area, my parishioners picking me up from the airport and taking me to the local Sizzler Steakhouse. The salad bar was about to be taken down, the remaining fresh food thrown into a dumpster. Within 24 hours, I had come from a place of starvation to a place where food was being wasted. This was the day I came to intimately understand the term cognitive dissonance. Now, just for a second, imagine that you are the parent of children in such a village. You are no longer able to raise and market the traditional food crops of your native land. The paramilitary has come in at night to destroy your food supply. Perhaps tomorrow they will come to kill you and your family members. Or imagine you live in a village in Mexico where the drugs you now produce are controlled by narcotraficantes. And now those gangs are insisting that your child be a part of their operations. These realities present options of watching your family starve to death, or your children becoming terrorists, or migrating to El Norte. So ask yourself, what would you do? As I see it, The starting place for talking about how to respond to human beings who immigrate to our country, whether legally or not, is to recognize that at heart, with the exception of Native Americans, we are all either immigrants ourselves or descendants of immigrants. My family came to America through Philadelphia, refugees from religious wars that embroiled what is today Northern Ireland and Germany in the 18th century. Today, I live on land once within the tribal bounds of the Aboriginal Timucuan people, and later the Seminoles. We also need to remember that immigration has historically been an absolute boon to the rise of America to greatness. The synergy created by people from all over the world coming into our country at the 19th century became the engine for amazing discoveries in the arts, engineering, and the sciences. It was the golden egg fueling America's rise to world dominance. But it did not come without problems. New York was marked by slums, gangs, and corrupt politics. Today, the turbulent region along our border with Mexico faces a humanitarian crisis as a crush of young families arrive in need of housing, food, and the means to offer their talents to us. Now, these problems are often exacerbated by the anti-immigrant sentiment that often marks our response to such crises. It's ironic for me to hear the rhetoric of those who once called themselves know-nothings, white Anglo-Saxon Protestants who feared their loss of social dominance in the face of the flood of Catholic and Jewish European immigrants into America in the mid-19th century. And they are now reappearing in our 24/7 news cycles, and some are finding their way into political platforms today. I believe that if we're going to tackle the problems of immigration, we will have to confront the large-scale factors that drive people to cross socially constructed borders today around the world. Immigration is a worldwide problem. Those include economic agreements which encourage the production of drugs to feed the market for them in our own country, the unregulated flood of weaponry into conflict zones around the world, and if those were not intimidating enough, there's the ever-increasing impact of anthropogenic climate change. There is no single factor here that is in itself easily dealt with, and when considered together, the situation can seem impossible. But we do not have the luxury of throwing our hands up and walking away. Nor can quick fixes, which we well-trained consumers believe are our entitlement, address the real problems that we face. Building walls may provide a feel-good political response, but bear in mind what all the great walls in history have in common. And that includes the Great Wall of China, Hadrian's Wall there at the bottom left, up at the top, the Berlin Wall, and this is the wall that currently divides Israel from the West Bank, right? The thing that all these great walls in history have in common, in the end, none of them worked. Our spiritual and ethical traditions have much to offer us here. In the Christian tradition, Jesus himself was a refugee, his family immigrating from Judea to Egypt in the face of King Herod's infanticide. While it is not clear that this story is historical, it's easy to imagine that there would be no stories about Jesus at all had he been separated from his family at the Egyptian border or returned to his homeland to face certain slaughter. Little wonder Jesus would teach, "When I was hungry, you gave me food. When I was thirsty, you gave me drink. When I was a stranger, you welcomed me. Truly, I say to you, as you did it to one of the least of my brethren, you did it to me." The Hebrew Scriptures are also very clear about duties to immigrants. Prophets like Jeremiah declared, "Thus says the Lord, act with justice and righteousness. Do no wrong or violence to the alien, the orphan, or the widow." These admonitions arising from ancestral memories of an exodus in which they were the people without a homeland, fleeing from persecution. The writers of Leviticus would remind them, "The alien who resides with you shall be to you as a citizen among you. You shall love the alien as yourself, for you were once aliens in the land of Egypt. I am the Lord your God." Okay, now this is where you're on. Among the 7 principles of the Unitarian Universalist tradition, I believe the following are implicated by these considerations. First principle, the inherent worth and dignity of every person. Second principle, justice, equity, compassion in human relations. Fourth principle, a free and responsible search for truth and meaning, which I hope is what we are doing this morning. Sixth principle, the goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all, recognizing immigration is an international world problem. Seventh principle, respect for the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part. And so my question to you, as Unitarian Universalists today, is how you will live into your own values in dealing with this very vexing problem that faces all of us. While there are many possible responses to the vexing problems of immigration, I'd like to close with an example of what Abraham Lincoln called our better angels. Emma Lazarus's poem, The New Colossus, located at the foot of the Statue of Liberty, offers us a vision of an America who faced the last immigration crisis and rose to glory on the backs and the imaginations of these new arrivals. Lazarus said, "Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free, the wretched refuse of your teeming shore. Send these, the homeless, tempest-tossed, to me. I left my lamp beside the golden door." This is America at its finest. And I pray that we will find a way to live into the ideals we say we believe in. Lincoln was writing during the existential crisis of the Civil War. We too face an existential crisis today, along with much of the rest of the world trying to figure out how to deal with the mass movements of humanity driven by starvation, violence, and climate change. And while I am not optimistic, I am hopeful. I believe our better angels are capable of finding answers to these vexing problems, and I pray that I may be a part of that solution. I am praying that you will too. And I thank you for being willing to wrestle with these issues with me today. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Please join me in extinguishing the chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Our closing music is hymn number 121, We Will Build a Land, and Martha Kirby will be leading us.
Here you go. 1, 2, and 4. We're going to sing verses 1, 2, and 4. We'll build a land where we bind up the broken. We'll build a land where the captives go free, where the oil of gladness is all morning. Oh, we'll build a promised land that can be. Come to the land where sisters and brothers anointed and godly and create peace. Where clouds and shadow like waters and peace like an ever-flowing stream. We'll build a land where we bring our good tidings to all the afflicted and all those who mourn, and we'll give them garland instead of ashes. Oh, we'll build a land where peace is born. God will
the land where the mantles of praises resound from spirits one faint and one sweet, where like oaks of righteousness stand a people. Oh, come in the land, my people will seek. Come to the land where sisters and brothers, anointed by God, bathe and create peace, where justice shall roll down like waters, and peace like an ever-flowing stream.
Very nice, and thank you, Janet. You had beautiful playing today.
Closing words from 2 U.S. presidents. My fellow Americans, we are and always will be a nation of immigrants. We were strangers once too. Barack Obama. If we ever closed the door to new Americans, our leadership in the world would soon be lost. Ronald Reagan. Thank you for joining us today. We will be taking a 5-minute break, and anyone who would like to stay for more conversation, we will be forming a circle. So, thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful week.